Hello guys, it is Gated Theories here, and today we are going to talk about the brand new movie Yesterday, which involves the stars such as Lily James, who we know you all love on this channel because of our Mamma Mia videos, and if you haven't seen them, then you can make sure that you can go and check out our playlist on this channel. And the movie Yesterday is such a brilliant movie. Like, I really enjoyed it. Some of the lines in it are so hilarious. It's a really funny and entertaining movie, but there's one thing that doesn't make sense, and that is the whole changing world, everyone and everything, forgetting about the Beatles and lots of other things. Like, lots of it doesn't make sense, and the biggest plot hole is, well, the entire movie. How on earth has everyone forgotten about it, and how have the most three random people on the planet are the only ones that remember the Beatles? And it's never really explained at all throughout the entire movie why on earth these three people are the ones that can remember the Beatles and everyone else in the world can't. And it's just been driving me crazy for ages. Like, I want to know why on earth these people know and why on earth everyone doesn't know. So today we're going to work out why on earth only three people in the entire world of Yesterday only remember the Beatles and why everyone else forgot them. And let me tell you, this theory is extremely complicated. Like, it's very confusing, so be prepared, guys. Just be prepared. But before we go any further, just make sure you click that red subscribe button down below and have your notifications on. So, before we get into this really complicated theory about how on earth only three people seem to remember the Beatles and all of that sort of stuff, let's just discuss about what on earth this movie actually tells us about why on earth everyone seems to have forgotten. Now, the movie tells us about 5 things that don't exist now in this new world, which suggests that there's most likely a lot more things, but the movie just doesn't go into it. And these are the Beatles, of course, because that's what the entire movie is about, Coke, Oasis, cigarettes, and Harry Potter. Now, all of those are completely random stuff, and of course the Beatles and Coke seem to have quite a big role in the movie, basically creating lots of funny lines, but it's never really explained why on earth these 5 random things have just gone missing. And across the entire world, only 3 people can remember the Beatles, so I'm guessing they remember the other stuff such as cigarettes and Coke. These 3 people are Jack, the main character, Liz, whose name on IMDb has in brackets Liverpool Stranger, and Leo, whose name also on IMDb has in brackets Russian Stranger. So obviously these guys literally are complete strangers. The movie goes into nothing about them. I literally have searched on the internet for ages and cannot find anything about them whatsoever. These people are completely random, so why are they the only ones who remembers? Literally, the movie tells us nothing about this Leo and Liz person, so I had to do a bit of digging about why on earth these 2 people were the ones who remembered as well as Jack, because we can look at Jack later on. It's these 2 people, Liz and Leo, who, like, we know absolutely nothing about. So what I did was I decided to find why on earth the writers and producers would have used the name Liz and Leo. And Liz was obviously the easiest one to find. I literally looked up the album that Yesterday is from, and it's from the album Help. And in this album, there's literally a song called Dizzy Miss Lizzy, which to me just says, right, okay, Dizzy Miss Lizzy, Liz, right, that must be where on earth they get the name from. So that might be why on earth they decided to choose this character. And of course, this character is from Liverpool, where the Beatles are from, so it makes sense that she might be one of the characters that gets changed. As for Leo, though, it took a little harder, so I decided to look at the time when Yesterday, the song, was released, and it was released in early August, and of course, the Leos are fitted with the star sign of the Zodiac, which runs from the time of July to late August, which means that it might make sense because Yesterday was released in early August, and of course, Leo is around that sort of time in the star signs. I know it's a little bit of a stretch, but we've literally got nothing to work off here, because the movie literally tells us nothing. So that might be why on earth these people are called Liz and Leo. And for the reason why on earth Leo is Russian, well, we had a look at some parts of the movie, and of course in the movie we see Liz and Leo always carrying that yellow submarine around to represent the song Yellow Submarine. So I went to the song Yellow Submarine, found its lyrics, and decided to literally search in Russian Green Sea and to see if I could find anything, and it turns out that at one point in Russia the sea turned green. So yeah, that's what we're going to have to go off here, because there's literally nothing in the movie that tells us about them. So Leo, the reason why he's in it is because of the star sign, and because they keep carrying around this yellow submarine. Maybe he touched the Green Sea, maybe not, who knows, something to do with this. It's some sort of link between them. And as for Liz, it's a lot more easier, because we've got some proof from the album that the song Yesterday's from, and of course, she lives in Liverpool, and that's where the Beatles grew up from. So that is why enough these two people might be affected in it. So now let's actually discuss what on earth happened when Jack fell off his bike. What on earth was this big explosion that managed to make the entire world forget about the Beatles and lots of other stuff? And this is where it gets complicated. So basically, we can see the effects of what I'm going to call the blackout, because when, of course, the accident where Jack falls off his bike happens, the entire world's electricity all goes out for 12 seconds, which is what Ellie says. So I'm going to call it the blackout from now on. So we can see the effects of the blackout caused by looking throughout the whole movie. This whole blackout, when all the electricity in the world went off, creates a new world where everyone has forgotten certain things apart from 3 people. But later on in the movie, we learn something new about this big change that happened. This happens when Jack visits 78-year-old John Lennon, who doesn't know anything about the Beatles and is alive instead of dying in 1980 in the real world, when John Lennon in real life was assassinated. Jack himself even says to the 78-year-old Lennon, "You're alive," and John Lennon gives him a very confusing look, because he has no idea what on earth he's on about. And it turns out that John Lennon's whole life is completely different to the one who was in the Beatles. Instead, he's a farmer and didn't die because he wasn't assassinated. This shows that when the blackout happened in the present, it didn't just affect the present and the future, but the past as well. And it's really complicated to get your head around. For example, if we take one of the other forgotten things such as Harry Potter, because the blackout didn't just affect the present and the future, but also the past, it means Harry Potter was never written in the first place, which is why no one knows what it is. J.K. Rowling is most likely still alive in this new world and does exist, but isn't famous like she is in the real world, as in this world, she will never have written Harry Potter. Instead, she will have lived a completely different life, if you see what I mean. Now, this idea of something happening in the present or the future that affects the past is called quantum retrocausality. I hope I'm saying that right, and it's a really complicated thing. And it's basically a really, really complicated theory, but it's the idea that if we do something in the future, it can affect the past. Now, it works by having 2 particles that are entangled together. For example, particle A and particle B. If you measure the spin of particle A, you automatically know the value of particle B. This is because particle B is the opposite of whatever particle A was. Even though we didn't know anything about particle B before and didn't observe an exchange happening. Now, some theorists believe these spins and exchanges are all caused by retrocausality. The way some see it is, if time symmetry exists, which is basically the idea that time looks the same going forward or backwards, then retrocausality would allow particle B to go backwards in time. When it does do this, it takes the spin to the moment it was created and therefore affects its entangled partner. It's really complicated and confusing stuff, and it's still just a theory by scientists and hasn't been fully proven yet. And we're dealing with the world's population, so it's a little different, but it's sort of a similar idea. Now, it's a really complicated thing. Highly recommend that you go and check out a video about retrocausality, because it's really, really complicated. Anyway, going back to the blackout, the day after it happened, it shows Ellie reading a newspaper that on the back says the blackout was caused by a solar flare, and she says later it lasted for 12 seconds. And the dictionary definition of a solar flare is a brief eruption of intense high-energy radiation from the sun's surface, associated with sunspots and causing radio and magnetic disturbances on the Earth. Basically, a load of science complicated stuff. And it definitely caused a disturbance on the Earth by having enough power to turn off all of the electricity on the entire planet for 12 whole seconds. Many people think that if a solar flare hit us that was really powerful, it could wipe out electricity for us forever, and we'd have to live in like medieval times again. That's how powerful solar flares are. And if we can go back to the quantum retrocausality, the solar flare is a brief eruption of intense high energy. And this high amount of energy would then be transferred, creating a huge amount of energy. then retrocausality of some sort might have taken place or something like it. It's quite a stretch, but it's the closest explanation of how the past was changed by an action that happened in the present. Ellie says that it lasted for 12 seconds, and that is a long time, which explains why on earth it was so powerful to maybe do something like this. I mean, 12 seconds is... Man, that felt like forever. And then if we go back to the three people, Jack, Leo and Liz, we can sort of use this whole idea of the solar flare causing some type of retrocausality and looking back at Jack's accident. Now, he has pushed off his bike where all of the electricity is turned off. And my theory is that, how we discussed before, these three people must have all been doing something like Jack was, because that's the only explanation that we have from the movie. Jack was in an accident. Now, of course, there'd be loads of accidents going on around the world, but what if, like, the solar flare just manages to miss these three people because they're doing something completely different to other people? Maybe the accidents that they have are really similar to each other, and when the solar flare hit, it might have just sort of like left out a few areas, if you know what I mean. Like, it managed to turn off all the electricity of the world for 12 seconds and change everyone's minds. What if these three people somehow weren't affected by the solar flare, if you know what I mean? Like, it's a really big stretch, but it could be possible. And like I keep saying, the movie literally gives us nothing. It gives us no context, no information about why on earth this blackout happened, and why on earth only three people seem to remember the Beatles and all the rest of the stuff. So guys, that's the end of the video. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, then please make sure that you smash that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Tell us in the field section down below what you think about this theory. It is a theory that's like, it could work, but at the same time, it's a bit far-stretched because, like I keep saying, this movie literally gives us nothing to work off. And make sure you leave why you think the reason why only three people remember these sort of stuff, the reason what you think the reason for that is, down below in the field section as well. And as always, we've been here on Gated Theories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.